If you have ever walked into a room and completely forgotten why you went there, or struggled to recall the name of a familiar face, you have likely experienced a brief moment of cognitive panic. For millions of people, this is not a fleeting glitch. It is the terrifying, silent onset of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. We are constantly told by mainstream media that cognitive decline is an inevitable tragedy of aging, or purely a genetic death sentence that you simply inherit and cannot escape. This is a severe clinical misunderstanding that breeds helplessness. While specific genes, like the ApoE4 allele, do increase your susceptibility, the vast majority of Alzheimer's cases are not strictly genetic. They are multifactorial, driven by chronic, controllable metabolic failure and lifelong neuroinflammation. Your genetics load the gun, but your lifestyle and environment pull the trigger. Today, we are analyzing the exact biological mechanisms destroying your brain cells and the clinical protocols you must use to forcefully fight back and rebuild your cognitive reserve. Before we analyze the data, subscribe to the MedMetrics for objective medical truth. To truly understand Alzheimer's, you must look at the physical destruction occurring deep inside the architecture of the brain. This destruction is primarily driven by two microscopic culprits, amyloid plaques and tau tangles. Amyloid beta is actually a naturally occurring protein that your brain produces. In a healthy brain, it is cleared away efficiently. But in a diseased brain, these toxic protein fragments aggressively build up outside your nerve cells, clumping together to form hard, impenetrable plaques. These act like biological roadblocks that completely sever the electrical and chemical communication synapses between your neurons. Simultaneously, severe destruction is happening inside the cell itself. Your neurons rely on internal transport structures called microtubules to deliver life-saving nutrients from the center of the cell out to the distant synapses. A protein called tau acts as the railroad ties holding these tracks together. In Alzheimer's, these tau proteins structurally collapse and twist into dense, suffocating tangles. The transport tracks disintegrate. This effectively starves the brain cell from the inside out until it undergoes apoptosis, or cellular death. But what is triggering this dual destruction? The clinical data points directly to chronic neuroinflammation and severe metabolic dysfunction. Your central nervous system has its own dedicated immune cells called microglia. Normally, microglia are the cleanup crew, quietly sweeping away cellular debris. However, they are highly sensitive to systemic inflammation. Factors like a diet high in processed sugars, chronic psychological stress, a leaky gut barrier, and even mild repetitive traumatic brain injuries, like subconcussive impacts from sports, cause these microglia to become primed. A primed microglial cell is hyperactivated and trigger-happy. Instead of cleaning up, it begins aggressively attacking healthy brain tissue, secreting a constant flood of inflammatory cytokines that accelerate the formation of plaques and tangles. Coupled with this inflammatory fire is a severe energy crisis. Your brain is a metabolic engine. It weighs only 2% of your body mass, but demands up to 25% of your total energy. In an Alzheimer's brain, the cells become severely insulin resistant. Due to decades of consuming highly processed carbohydrates and triggering constant blood sugar spikes, the insulin receptors on your brain cells finally burn out and shut down. They lose the ability to absorb glucose. Your brain cells are literally starving to death in a sea of circulating sugar. This catastrophic energy failure is so perfectly correlated with cognitive decline that researchers and endocrinologists now widely classify Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes. To halt this decline and build a highly resilient brain, you must immediately alter your physiological fuel source and activate your body's survival mechanisms. By adopting a strict low-carbohydrate, high-fat nutritional protocol, you drastically lower your baseline insulin levels. When insulin drops, you force your liver to metabolize stored fat into ketones. Ketones are an incredibly efficient, water-soluble alternative fuel. Most importantly, ketones bypass the broken insulin receptors, easily penetrating starving, insulin-resistant brain cells and rapidly restoring their cognitive energy output. Furthermore, by incorporating intermittent fasting, you trigger a biological process called autophagy. Autophagy literally translates to self-eating. When your body is deprived of incoming calories, it goes into survival mode and begins scavenging for resources. It forcefully breaks down and recycles damaged, toxic cellular components, including the exact amyloid plaques that cause dementia. Second, you must prioritize deep, uninterrupted sleep. Sleep is not a passive state. It is an active, aggressive biological cleaning cycle. During the deepest stages of delta wave sleep, your brain's glymphatic system engages. The actual brain tissue physically shrinks, opening up the spaces between your cells, and forcefully washes cerebrospinal fluid through your neural network. This physically flushes out the toxic amyloid beta and metabolic waste before it can harden and destroy tissue. Chronic sleep deprivation guarantees that this daily neurotoxic waste will accumulate. Finally, you must force neuroplasticity. Your brain operates on a strict, non-negotiable principle: use it or lose it. However, doing crossword puzzles is not enough. You cannot outread a sedentary lifestyle. Engaging in intense, systemic physical exercise must come first. High-intensity exercise heavily increases cerebral blood flow and floods your brain with brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF is a biological miracle-grow. It forces new neural connections to sprout and protects existing cells from dying. Once you have primed the brain with exercise and BDNF, you must then engage in highly complex mental tasks, like learning a new language or a complex physical skill. Hebb's law states that cells that fire together wire together. This intense combination of physical and mental activation weaves a dense, indestructible web of neural pathways, creating a massive cognitive reserve that can withstand the aging process. Cognitive decline is not an inevitable fade to black. It is the end result of decades of unchecked inflammation and cellular energy failure. Stop starving your brain. Respect your biology. Subscribe to the MedMetrics and take absolute command of your cognitive health today.